Hello, everyone. I am Dion Cook from AVI-SPL, and welcome to Signature Microsoft Teams Rooms Made Easy. Today's presentation panelists include Dale Botcher, Greg Baribolt, Jason Malden, Chris Descato, Mike Dunn, and Melissa Adamson. Today's webinar is brought to you by our sponsor, Jupiter. Before I hand the presentation over to the panelists for discussion, there are a couple of housekeeping items I need to address first. Today's webinar qualifies for one CTS and CTSD renewal unit and none for the CTSI. Please allow up to 7 business days to view those on your transcripts. For any issues with this, please email the AVI-SPL team directly at webinars@avixa.org. The webinar will be approximately 45 to 60 minutes, and all attendees have been placed on mute. If you have any questions during our presentation, please enter them into the Q&A window so today's panelists can address them at the end of the presentation. To access this Q&A window, simply move your cursor to the bottom of your live stream video box, locate the Q&A icon, type away. But please be mindful there is a separate menu for the chat. You will have access to this recorded webinar at avixa.org/webinars within about 5 to 7 business days. Now on to our discussion. Panelists, please take it away.
Hello, everybody. I'm Mike Dunn. I'm with Jupiter Systems. I'm Senior Director of Sales on the enterprise side. Really excited to be here today. We have a great panel, industry experts with exceptional knowledge around the signature Teams room, which I'm standing in front of a Salamander Credenza, a Pana Jupiter 105, a Jabra camera, PanaCast 50 being driven by the Crestron UC Flex 31T. So we're really excited about our panel today and opening up a knowledge base around a signature room, what it means to design a signature room, the business value that they're delivering. And we're going to kick it off to start with Greg Baribolt, who's the head of product for Microsoft Teams Rooms. He's been with Microsoft for 25 years and certainly is the foremost expert on the UI. Greg actually owns I believe 3 patents on the front row UI. So we'll kick it off to Greg and then go through the panel. Thank you very much for joining.
Thanks, Mike. Hopefully you can all see my screen. Like Mike said, I'm Greg Baribolt, and I lead the product team that really envisions and designs and engineers our Teams Rooms experience and works with all of these great partners to bring those innovations to market across a wide variety of platforms and rooms spaces. I am incredibly excited to be here today for a couple of reasons. First, to be in great company with great companies and thought leaders in this space, but also that this type of conversation is even happening. It really shows me that we are listening to customers, putting the needs and priorities of customers and the pain points and the problems that need solving first, and forming new partnerships, breaking down boundaries, and really working together to put those needs first and solve. I'm also excited to be here at this time. We are at really an incredible time in the industry, at this confluence of 2, we sometimes call them megatrends. The trend around flexible work, where companies are really somewhat confused and learning quickly about how to adapt to an evolving workforce that, due to in large part to COVID, created a transformation where our workforce is very diverse, distributed around the world, and really demanding more flexibility in where, when, and how people work. And of course, then with AI, it's hard to have any conversation now without infusing AI into it. We're seeing it really come up in just about every workload in every type of work around the world. And to bring those two together and leverage those tools to solve some of these unique challenges, I think makes my job super exciting, and it just creates some really fun challenges to solve. One of the things that I do a lot at work actually is reflect on my own past and experience in meetings, talk with customers a lot, just about every day, about the sort of struggles they're having with adapting conference rooms to this new set of expectations. And then look at the tools that we have, these rich AV capabilities, very smart furniture designs, AI, and then how do we apply those tools to have the greatest impact and solve the problems the best we can. But of course, I work for Microsoft, and Microsoft is a software company, and I think it was a Maslow expression that when the only tool you have is a hammer, everything in the world starts to look like a nail. And as a software company, we've historically come at this challenge as a software challenge. How do we solve this by writing code? When I think back, there was a very clear day. It was in December, and about 2 years ago, and we were at the Hive, a facility that we have at Microsoft, with just a few colleagues. We thought we were going to be coming back to work. Turned out to be a bit of a false start, and we were back in quarantine for a bit longer. But that day stood out to me because we recognized this struggle of I have new expectations. I have a camera that's right in front of me all day. I have a microphone that's just a few inches away, and I've set that as my new expectation for engaging in a meeting. And when people came back to work and they sat in a room that looked kind of like this, they felt different. They didn't feel as visible and as seen. They didn't feel as recognized. And we realized, software alone isn't going to solve this problem. As the rooms scale up, you have a room like this. When you sit in a conference room, you don't look straight at your camera and right at your screen. You look around the room. So you'll look towards the front where the screen is, or you'll look to the power chair in the back of the room where the VP is sitting, or maybe even down at your laptop. And the one camera that's at the front of that room is just not going to do a good job of framing you, recognizing that you're there, and giving you that presence on the meeting stage that you've come to expect. And as rooms get larger, that problem just gets more and more pronounced. And these are important rooms. This is an example of a boardroom layout. And now the people that are sitting in this boardroom feel somewhat lost. Their identity is gone. Their unique presence on the stage is gone. And basically everything they say and do is coming through as the room account. They're showing up as the room system, not as themselves. So again, we realized software alone can't really solve that. But what do we do to get things started with software? And that was really the origin of Front Row, which Mike mentioned before. And so we created this experience that we called Front Row, mostly because of what it did with this video gallery. We stretched the people across the bottom at eye level with the people in the room. So as I sit in the chair and I glance around the room, everybody is at the same eye level with me. We're not stacking people on top of each other on the screen. We've removed things like background distractions. So I don't see people's backgrounds in the video. They really pop out of the screen as if they're in the room with me. We added additional capabilities like spatial audio. So with spatial audio, the voices come from the side of the room where the screen shows that same person. And it really reduces meeting fatigue. I don't have to hunt around to see who it is that's speaking. It very intuitively will look to where the audio is coming from. And we've employed AI across our audio stack to make sure audio comes through crystal clear, removes things like HVAC noise from the room, or the keyboard clicks at the table. And the lunch bag is kind of our canonical example of noise that comes from the conference room. And these were huge advances, and I think really set a new bar for the in-room experience. But we also really needed more space. We had a lot of rooms that were being set up with dual screens, but with dual screens, we had this bezel down the middle. And the content, you really had to choose, put the content on the left or the right, and you were sacrificing space one way or another. And that's when we really discovered this advantage of 21:9 aspect ratio screens. And so we decided to build a bespoke experience in Front Row just for that 21:9 screen, and be able to show we call the meeting inside the meeting, right? The chat. the people in the room started to feel really detached from the meeting because they weren't following along with the chat. So putting that on the screen, making it very visible front and center, showing a list of people with hand raised, with their hand raised. That will evolve. We'll have more content here. Things like Copilot, notes and action items and tasks will all be surfaced on the screen. And this is where our work with Jupyter, I think, has really been incredible, because we've standardized, even internally at Microsoft, many of our conference rooms around this 21:9 aspect ratio screen on the Jupyter 105 displays. And it has really transformed our spaces. So thinking a little deeper about AI, we also wanted to make sure we were capturing the people in the room in the best way we can. And one of the ways we were doing that is with a technology we call IntelliFrame. And IntelliFrame is kind of a collection of features. It includes things like multi-stream video. So each face at that table, we can stream into the meeting in a separate video stream. What that means as a remote participant is I can organize those videos the way I choose. If I'm seeing content, they might lay out side by side. If there's no content, we can stack them in a 2x2 grid. But there's flexibility about how that layout occurs. I can also see a panoramic view at the same time of everybody in the room and get the context. What are people doing? Who's looking towards who? Are people getting up and like walking to the whiteboard or something? So that gets everybody visual, seen in the meeting. But how do we know who they are? And how do we let people in the room feel that sense of identity and connection to the meeting? And we're doing that again with AI through identity, through voice, and face matching. So when people walk into the room right away, we show them in the roster, we put their name label on their video, and really let them be present and seen and recognized. When they speak, we're attributing the things they say to their identity. So in assets like the meeting transcript, you'll see who said what in the meeting room. And then you can imagine how that will power Copilot to enable Copilot to reason over that meeting content and make smarter decisions and more personalized meeting recaps that might show me the times that my name was mentioned, or the things that I asked for, the things that I said in the meeting. So these were all software techniques that we employed to make rooms richer. But I have often said you can have the best meeting software and the best meeting AV, but if you deploy it poorly and the space isn't really designed for it, you're still not going to have a great meeting experience. And so we've worked with our system integrators, with our AV partners, with folks like Jupyter and Crestron, to create what we call our signature room archetypes. So signature rooms, and you'll see these kind of flashing across the screen, are a way of rethinking the physical space and bringing furniture and space, audio and video technology, software and integration together into a playbook, a system that customers can engage with, get some guidance about the best tips and tricks, the best problems to think about, and really how to approach the problem in a repeatable way. Customers really wanted to understand how they could streamline the process, create, we sometimes call it a cookie cutter model, where they design this archetype or this space and then apply it to as many rooms as they have budget to support. So our job then became make some new friends, forge some new partnerships, and create greater clarity for our customers who are really struggling with this challenge of equipping conference rooms to best fulfill the needs of hybrid work. So I just showed multiple signature room types. We actually have 4 that are published today that run from the small rooms to medium-sized rooms, and then up including even executive-style boardroom that really focus on how to organize furniture, where to set up cameras, how large of a screen, how far away should the screen be from the table, really how to be smart about the audio and video device selection to match the needs and unique characteristics of each space. So with that, I'm going to turn this over to all of our friends here on this webinar Each will share their own unique point of view about how these components come together, interact, and fulfill this vision of a signature room experience. So I'm going to turn it over to Mike from Jupiter Systems to share more about our display approach. Thank you.
Thanks, Greg. Really appreciate that. Great insights, and the market leadership really helps expand on what we're seeing in the space and the relationship with Microsoft. I first met Microsoft, I believe, in terms of the relevance around Teams signature rooms, was at the Hive in January 2022, met with Sam Albert, and going through that early. And I remember you were on chat. So that was a really first step into understanding this and the evolution of where our workspaces are going. So I'm going to share some content and just carry forward with a little bit of the conversation and what we're seeing. Bear with me a minute. Oops. User error here. I'm going to stay in drive mode here. All right, so we're going to talk a little bit about the business drivers and what we see in our engagements. And Jupiter is the market leader in signature room deployments as it relates to 21.9 technology. And really, this is top of mind. Everybody on this call probably realized the challenge around bringing employees back to work. But what does that really mean at the C-suite for Fortune 1000 and Fortune 500s? It's really about this massive and substantial corporate real estate portfolio that isn't being utilized. And so that makes it a top agenda item for them in meeting the objectives. And nobody has a silver bullet. There's not one size fits all, the perfect answer. So each organization has its own unique culture and approach to this. And the flexible designs that Greg just showed really enables companies and enterprises to be able to look at how they meet their hybrid objectives, in a fashion that will drive and incentivize the employee base to come back. And it's an absolute large value and impact on meeting equity and the user experience. And that's what drives change, is a better user experience, an exponential user experience. One of the byproducts of the signature room designs, which are 21.9 ultra wide, compute device, AI cameras, audio systems, microphones, DSP, is that with the signature design and the architecturals around it, the furniture, those rooms can be simplified in a more scalable fashion. And that's really what needs to be done to be able to propagate in these large organizations to drive the objective of getting people back in the office. Certainly from our perspective, we've gained 125 new customers, large organizations that have adopted signature Teams rooms. So the process is definitely working. From a standpoint of the technical side, it's really important to understand, and I'd invite you to look at the guidance page from Microsoft and understand what the certified devices are. Signature room, in essence, means 21.9. As Greg described it, they designed the UI, the layouts for the 21.9 ultra-wide displays. And those are driven by very specific compute devices that are offered in the guidance page. And Jason from Crestron will talk about the Flex UC B31T as one of those certified devices. And then Chris from Salamander will bring in the importance of the furniture and the space design. Some of the notes that Greg shared, those are critical. Going into legacy spaces and using existing furniture may not facilitate a hybrid end result that's positive. Room sizes, budgets tie into that. More scale equals a lower budget and the ability to be able to drive to those rooms and what the really ideal utilization is of those rooms, whether it's 5 to 6 people, 3 to 5 people, and then the larger rooms. But those are important considerations. And then our partners at AVI-SPL, who bring deployment, scale, and most importantly, I think, support and service, lowering the total cost of ownership. And that's the parties that are here today to talk about those specific expertises and subject matter that they're very capable in. The room designs, Greg stole a little bit of my thunder, but he showed a very comprehensive view. But the idea here is that these are flexible. It's not just the arc table that's marketed. It is the guitar pick table. It is the smaller huddle room in the ocular tables that can be utilized, and then into the larger spaces with the arc table that can seat 7 to 9. Here's some guidance within that type of square footage. The baseline signature room is a single display system, although we do see multiple display and moving off of that in larger executive spaces, that's possible as well. As mentioned, we want to close out with the idea Jupiter is the first to market, designed and engineered a 21:9 display in a large format. We are at our core an engineering company. We're deployed in more than 65 Fortune 100 or 500 organizations. We're operating in 30 plus countries. But the most important thing is we're fully integrated with the Microsoft Signature MTR solutions, and we can really bring a breadth of knowledge and information from all that experience being in the market for coming on 23 months now. So the bundle team is here on this call, and this is an all-in-one Signature MTR solution. You have market-leading solution providers from the integrated Pana, as mentioned, Salamander, Crestron, delivered by AVI-SPL, supported by Microsoft. So scalable, efficient, lower deployment and TCO costs. So with that, I will kick it off to Jason at Crestron, who will talk about compute and Crestron's alignment with the Signature Teams room.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it. Thanks, everyone, for your time today. Great to see so many people interested in this topic. Let me go ahead and take over from you, Mike, here and bring up presentation. And we'll get started from there. Okay, excellent. This has been an interesting topic. This has been very near and dear for me. So my role at Crestron, again, my name is Jason Molden. I'm the Director of Technical Marketing. And so I have a somewhat of a unique role sitting in between our product development team and then how we articulate products in market. And we had seen this trend coming. We'd obviously seen some of the buildup. If you visited an MTC or another Microsoft location, there's a very good chance you've seen one of these particular rooms installed and heavily used in many cases. And so as we looked at this from the manufacturing standpoint, all of us are effectively positioning, where does our product fit into the mix? How can we help with this particular experience? So for Crestron, when we think about our solutions, we obviously create products that support the Microsoft Teams room experience. We're a little bit behind the scenes. So what I wanted to do is talk about some of the invisible elements that are critical for a signature room. And the first one, obviously, is the equipment that runs the Teams application that facilitates the Microsoft Teams room experience. So in this particular bundle, we have a selected solution or a selected kit that we found is the best match for Microsoft's requirements, and then obviously working with our partners to bring this together. And this is consistent for a Teams room. There's 2 or 3 critical components, if you will. Obviously, we have a user interface. We have a device that is in fact the compute behind the scenes running the Teams application. And then, of course, we have our selected peripheral, and you're going to select the peripheral based on room type and room size, but our core components remain the same. For these bundles and this particular solution we've all brought together, obviously having a product like the Jabra PanaCast has been a great solution because of the wide range from a camera angle that it fits this style of room. But again, bringing this together. So we have a particular kit, obviously, that's available through AVI-SPL and with our partners to bring that together. The one interesting note is that from Crestron's standpoint, we are very keen and very bullish about the Windows experience. We obviously are like many of the other OEMs, obviously there are a number of different ways that you can deploy Microsoft Teams rooms as well as Microsoft Teams devices. For this particular signature room solution with the associated features, it's a Windows-based platform, hence that particular kit that I have there on screen. When we think about the value of a signature room, I think there's a couple of things that we want to keep in mind. As users have returned back to the office, a couple of the critical points have been from the employer standpoint. What is that most attractive reason that someone would want to come back in the office? What is the experience I have at home versus what do I have, if I'm making that particular drive or whatever it is back into the office? And there's a buzzword that's been thrown around a lot in the last few years, which is referred to as earning the commute, that the employer needs to make sure that the value of having that person come in is worth it, right? What does the application look like? What does the office look like? Things like that. What we found, and Mike made reference to it, obviously, is with the number of customers that have latched on, the signature room design really meets and exceeds that element, that this is a room that people want to see. This is a room that people want to use. I work with a customer that deployed quite a few of these. And their comment was, this is something where employees want to come back in because they want to use this particular style. It's a different room. It's a new experience. It's not just from a signature room standpoint. Obviously, we have a lot of growth. You saw Greg's initial slide there for a number of different room types and the archetypes that Microsoft uses even in their portfolio. But it does open a door. And so when we think about these, this isn't an every room scenario. Certainly, customers are not going to deploy one in every single space, but it's that anchor for what does that new workplace experience look like when I come back into the office. In addition to our core components, one of the things we think about is what else is done with the room and how does the room fit our overall space. So I use an old reference. I have my 3 A's that I tend to fall back on or lean on when we talk about these solutions. So obviously accommodation within the space. Users have Teams at home. They want to have a Teams experience when they come in. So how do we adapt to those spaces? Signature room gives us a great ability. We've seen this done a couple ways. We've seen this built new. We've also seen a lot of customers take an existing room, which might have been rectangular in size, and rotate it. Now, it does come with the price that obviously our seating capacity is limited in that room versus the other. However, what we see is we see a higher use of the room. And so we kind of flip the numbers that if it was the regular sized long room, are people as interested in using it? But if we can bring in an experience that creates that equity, right now I've made that adaptation to the space. So we found that critical for a lot of users. When we think about the environment, that's another part. A lot of our signature rooms may be larger in size. We have other factors we want to influence. The beauty is of having the Microsoft Teams room experience tied in with our hardware and then extending on to our partners in Jupyter and Salamander. I can now take other things into account. If it's a larger room, when I walk in, I can have the system light up automatically when it turns in by leveraging an occupancy sensor, or I can control our environmentals if I need to. So we have a number of other things we get into, because remember, the core component of that signature room is making sure that we deliver on that experience, that we deliver the equity for the users. So these systems do have the ability. We can start thinking about what else do we need to take in. And finally, automation. When we think about spaces, we want to do everything we can to make sure that from a manufacturing standpoint, from a Microsoft, Crestron, Jupyter Salamander standpoint, we want that experience to be that single touch. So we want to take care of everything in the background. We want to make sure that the Jupyter display turns on automatically when it sees signal from the Crestron system. We want to make sure that the IT procurement team, who's probably more familiar with tech, is able to roll the system out. So I have a partner in Salamander I can rely on that creates the infrastructure for that device to live. So it's all wrapped together in that case. And so now we can think about automated behaviors, because again, down to one button, we want to press join, and that's the only experience we want the users to have to go through. It's just as much about that experience as the in-meeting experience, again, because we're trying to provide for those users and make sure this is that elevated experience that they want to move into. The other component when we think about rooms that we don't take as much into account necessarily is the concept of scale. And this is, again, behind the scenes. So from the Crestron platform, we have effectively a 3-tiered approach. When we think about solutions, we start with Crestron XIO Cloud. So that's our Azure-based management software that allows us hardware access or provisioning. We know that for the Teams rooms, as Greg mentioned, we're talking about some of the latest features and the latest innovations And so the best pairing or the best coupling in that case from a licensing standpoint is the Microsoft Teams Rooms professional license, or the pro license. So that provides us all of the benefit that we need to take advantage of inside a signature room. And then lastly, when we think about management of the Teams element or management from the application standpoint, that's when we start to leverage the Microsoft Teams Rooms Pro Portal. And so many of the features that we might need, I saw a couple questions in the chat. Do I need to do anything within the application to enable for this device? There's really only one thing that has to be set up, and it's making a decision if you want the front row component or the user interface as we've seen as the default behavior. And that's something I can configure from the Pro Portal, so it's less touches in the room. So again, our component in the mix here is certainly on the back end. We deliver the Microsoft experience to the table for the user. But our goal, again, is to make sure that it's not only that in-meeting experience, but everything leading up to that. Okay. With that, I'm going to wrap up my section, and I'm going to hand over to my friend Chris Descato from Salamander, who's going to talk to you a little bit about their solutions.
Hey, well, thank you very much, Jason. Really appreciate that. Let me start to share my screen real quick. All right, well, thanks for having me, and thanks for all of our great partners here. Really appreciate you being part of this group. So where Salamander comes in is we've been making beautiful, purposely built furniture for technology for 30 years. So it's furniture that on the outside looks amazing. It has a great fit and finish, but it helps to deploy rooms quicker. And when it comes to your Microsoft Teams Rooms and this whole idea of the flexible work that we've been talking about, it's really a buzzword. And for most of us, when we hear flexible work, we're thinking some people come into the office 3 days a week, 4 days a week, 2 days a week, and that's what we think of flexible work. What we find is that the end users and the folks that are in charge of these buildings, what they need is systems that allow them to be very flexible in the design of that space. Because as work is changing, the needs of the meeting space is changing. They're collecting more data from all these phenomenal devices on how the rooms are being used. And they want to use that data in order to change the rooms out more quickly, so that way they get better ROI on their real estate. So whether you're talking about a signature Teams room, and I'll show you our ARC table and what we have for that, or any of the other types of signature rooms that you can deploy, we have solutions that make that deployment construction free, which allows the end user to not only deploy rooms quicker and with less costs and less trade coordination, but allows them to adapt to future needs as well. So as how we work changes and how the flexibility changes and what the expectations are of the employees change, they can make changes to the environment much easier because they don't need costly and time-consuming construction, especially when it comes to the wall. So what that means, for us is that when you have a standard room like this, so standard room that maybe is pre-pandemic, and they want to make this into a signature Teams room, if this was standard construction methods, what they would have to do is take down that display there, probably have to repatch that wall, have to do more construction to the opposite wall, right? And put backing in the wall, put conduit in the wall, raise the electrical. And depending on where they are in the world and what town they're in, what city they're in, this could be thousands of dollars up to $10,000 or more, when we're talking in a populous city and working in large buildings. So that can be very time consuming and very expensive for the end user. With our solution, we make it very easy to deploy new technology, because instead of worrying about any infrastructure on the wall, you can mount a beautiful display like the Jupiter 105, which is over 200 pounds on a 12-inch deep cabinet, just using drywall toggles that come in the box. And this is in the US UL listed, so it can hold a ton of weight. Whether it's something like this or direct view LEDs and other products, it's done without needing any infrastructure, additional infrastructure, which is both saving time, money, and it allows this room to go maybe from this style of room to now it's going to be a large private office, very easy to adapt as those needs change for the end user. So getting into our table that we worked and collaborated with Microsoft on, and also all the products that we come out with, we're also constantly talking to our large enterprise clients as well, seeing what is already on the market, what do they like, what do they not like, how can we help them to deploy spaces that are more functional and more adaptable for their needs. So we worked with Microsoft on this ARC table, making sure that it met all of their requirements for a signature Teams room. And with this ARC table comes a lot of questions, right? And I've seen some of these questions as I'm looking in the chat about the style of room this is. And again, Microsoft has lots of different types of rooms depending on how that room is going to be used. It can still be a Microsoft signature Teams room even without that ARC table. But I wanted to go over kind of table shape and kind of give everyone an idea of the use cases, right? So a boat-shaped table, which is kind of the classic shape that was really used a lot pre-COVID, is great for when everyone's in the room together and they're collaborating. However, it is not good for sharing content, and it's not good for allowing everyone to be on camera together, as you can see in the bottom left-hand image there. Now, the ARC table, which is the right-hand image, you can see you have an unobstructed view of all the remote participants. And this is the best table, best setup if the idea of the meeting is going to be a team in one room is collaborating with people or a team that are in a different building, a different room, right? And it makes it very much a very easy collaboration between those two parties. If the idea is going to be kind of hybrid, between these two experiences, so we are going to collaborate with people that are with us. We're also collaborating with people that are remote. Then it's the trapezoidal table, which Microsoft has in other types of setups, that is the best use case for that particular environment. And of course, we have solutions for all of these, but with the ARC table, you can still collaborate with the people that are in the room. So a nice thing about that ARC is it's kind of like being on half of a boat, right? And I said that the boat shape is actually the best for in-person meeting. So it's really like being on one side of it, and you can really see everyone that is around you very easily on ARC table, as you can see in this image here. So now also we made sure that there is lots of connectivity for power adapters for the Crestron touchscreen in order to use the room. So very easy to go up the wire mesh and then into a nice wire raceway at the front of that table, and then you can have your cut-ins, because no matter what it is, whether it's a table or a cabinet, we're always looking at how is wire management done, making sure that it's going to be a clean look, because what end users want is to go into a room and have it look very much inviting. So we have lots of different types of of accessories that can go in the table, and you can also specify your own as well in order to make it the best possible. Comes in lots of different finishes, and we will help organizations all across the world standardize on whatever type of meeting space that they are doing. So thank you very much for your time. I'm going to put my contact information, a couple good links in the chat, so look out for that. And I want to turn it over to our great partner, AVI-SPL, and Dale Botcher.
Thanks, Chris. I appreciate it. All right. Start sharing as well. Okay. All right. Well, thank you all. And I have the pleasure of kind of batting cleanup here. Kind of a typical integrator role is to come in last and make it all work. And so that's what we're going to do. So I'm Dale Botcher. I'm the EVP of Global Sales and Marketing for AVI-SPL. Thrilled to be with you to wrap up sort of the presentation part of this webinar, and I stand between you and the Q&A period, and everyone has done a great job of getting right to it, so I appreciate that. As we kind of look forward here, I did want to say thanks to AVI-SPL and obviously all of the attendees in the webinar. We have great attendance here today. Thank you to Greg at Microsoft and Jupiter, Crestron, and Salamander as well. We're absolutely thrilled to be able to partner with all four providers and solutions to deliver what I say is a very unique signature Microsoft Teams Room solution, and unique in the way that we're serving it up, and unique in the way that it serves the needs of the end users. But before I go there, real quick, AVI-SPL, if you don't know, AVI-SPL is a global digital enablement solutions provider. We help transform people and technology and connect all of them to elevate experiences and create new value, enable organizations to thrive and grow. And that's really what our mission is. We're focused on delivering great experiences and working with great partners and great technology. And so this is a perfect match. We do that across our 60+ offices and our physical presence around the globe. So truly a global reach through our over 4,000 employees, and we support it as well through our presence with all of our global service operations centers. As I mentioned, I'm really thrilled with the solution. We talked about this for some time, worked with the partners to pull this together, and obviously with Microsoft as well. But we really look at this as simplicity meets scalability. Today, we're deploying Microsoft Teams Rooms at just an unprecedented clip, and a lot of different varieties. But this 21x9 solution is absolutely a unique offering. We've talked about it. You heard the other presenters mention sort of the benefits of it, but we're finding that it's a great complement solution to the Microsoft Teams Rooms platform, and it absolutely should be sort of one of the solutions that are deployed in a catalog of offerings. So the unique piece of this is, as Chris kind of elaborated on, is this is a standalone solution that is bundled with the kit and the renderings, the integration. It's rapid quoting and rapid deployment, along with the global support, leveraging the Crestron Flex with the Jabra PanaCast 50 video bar, the Jupiter Pana 21x9 ultra-wide 5K display, and of course the Salamander Designs credenza and the Arc table. And again, as Chris talked about, there are many different variations of this, but we're landing on this 21x9 solution and bringing that forward. I did want to show a quick video. Hopefully that'll come across okay. So bear with me here. So you're seeing the video now. This is I'll talk over it. This is a video rendering that we will do, virtual reality rendering, to make sure that you get the right amount of seats, put them in the right place, mount the camera, the video bar at the right height, and have an understanding of the impact and the views from a participant's perspective, even the audio coverage in the room. So completely flexible. This VR design is done for this particular solution, but we can offer this service for any room or any Microsoft Teams room solution. So it's, again, something that will help with the decision making and kind of a quick ability to bring this back, to make some decisions, to work through any of those design challenges or meetings that you have with your corporate real estate and facilities teams, and all that have a hand in that. So why we think it's really important, again, we talked about the importance of meeting equity. Obviously, with the prolific sort of adoption of Microsoft Teams in the push to work from home and now hybrid work and the return to office, it is really critical that we deliver meeting equity and the signature Microsoft Teams room, especially this 21x9 solution, accomplishes that with optimized sight lines and audio for in-person and remote meeting attendees alike. So it's a really great solution. It addresses the accessibility and sustainability concerns as well. And then it's future-proof. So working with AVI-SPL as a Microsoft Solutions partner that specializes in the calling for Teams and meetings and MTR for Microsoft Teams, you absolutely have a future-proof solution and design. So what's next, I guess? You can scan this QR code to learn more, to actually get an order started if that's where you want to go already. Or if you want to hear more or do more of an in-person test drive, we invite you to join us for this Let's Break to Educate event in South Florida next week on the 27th. But we're really excited about the partnership and about the opportunity to bring this unique experience forward with this great set of partners. So with that, I will stop my presentation, and I think we will turn it back to the, is it Mike, or are we back to AVIXA for the Q&A?
I think we're going to go to Melissa and
Okay.
sort through some questions here. Thanks so much, Dale. Thanks to everybody on the panel, your partnership, and all the efforts and meetings that we've had in the real world and deployments, but also organizing this event and just in general, propagating the signature rooms out in space for our end user community. So Melissa Adamson, who's our Senior Director of Marketing at Jupiter, was going to help us with some of the questions. And I can take one out of the gate. Somebody asked how much a Pana 105D weighs. And it is about 135 pounds, so not 200 pounds. So knock that one out. But Melissa, if you want to let us know what questions have come about.
Sure. Yes, and a couple of people have asked if the webinar will be available. AVIXA will be sending it out, the recorded version, and then also we will be communicating with all attendees. And if you had any colleagues that were unable to attend but they registered, they will receive a copy of the webinar as well as the slide deck, probably early next week. So look for that. If you do have questions, there is a Q&A window. I have seen a couple questions come through on the chat, but if specific questions, please put them into the Q&A. If we run out of time, or if you have specific pricing questions, account management questions, we will address those independently and personally depending on who you need to speak with. So to start out, there's a question: is 21x9 possible for MTR-A appliance, or is it only for MTR-W?
It is not available for Android at the moment. I think Greg can speak to possibly roadmap on Android, but it is a Windows supported configuration in that Windows supports 21.9, and the Android devices to date, all-in-one, neat bars, rally bar, or all-in-one rallies, etc., do not support 21.9 at the moment. I don't know if Greg, if you want to add anything to that.
Yeah, I'll say it's in development right now, and it's actually in validation phase right now. So that will definitely come to Android, and actually will come fairly soon.
Great, that's great news.
Thank you. next question: is there a list of Microsoft certified DSPs for that feature?
I think that feature must be spatial audio.
Must be, yes.
Yeah. There is a list of not just DSPs, but audio devices overall that are supporting the spatial audio feature. We will only activate the feature if we detect that device there. So, and there's no way to override that. The main reason we did that, I actually wrote this in another answer, but we want to make sure that when we play audio in the room and then manipulate where it comes from, left or right side, that we're not creating an echo loop in the room where you then hear it from the microphone. And all of our certified devices go through a pretty rigorous echo and noise reduction test. And we wanted to ensure that by introducing spatialized sound, that we're not basically breaking that and creating echo. So we have run a separate set of tests on each device. It takes some time, so we're still working through the list and enabling them as they pass. So every multi-channel audio device that's certified, we definitely want to make it spatial aware, spatial certified.
Excellent. Thank you. Here's a question about the auditorium. Do you have an auditorium setup?
I can speak to, and Dale may be able to chime in on this as well. Although the signature design and what you see in the architectural is a single display, we've done many rooms leveraging front row signature. Our largest space, we actually have 7 Panas delivering an experience intermixed with 16:9 content monitors. So those are unique to larger spaces, but they exist and they are viable in terms of custom designs.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. We could kind of get really creative with the custom design and the integration around that. Obviously, today's webinar was focused on the, this particular bundle, but there's lots of configurations and opportunity to meet different needs.
Excellent. So here's a next question. Most content will come in from a laptop will be 16:9. If you're not using the room strictly for an internal offline meeting, will the content be pillar boxed?
Yes, if the content itself, it's a PowerPoint, for example. PowerPoints are almost always 16:9 by default. And yes, if you were to just plug your laptop into the 21:9 screen, it will be letterboxed. You'll see the content centered. If you're driving it through a Teams Rooms device, so using like the HDMI ingest on a Teams room, then if there are no remote participants, we'll still just simply show it letterboxed. That's, I think, kind of an artifact of the just differences in the aspect ratios. So we do the best we can to use as many pixels as possible, but yeah, if there's nothing to show on the outer edges, there's nothing to show.
Okay.
I would add to that, just from the standpoint that some of the end users that are really all in on 21:9 and front row being the catalyst for that. This does involve change management, I understand that, but they are creating content in 21:9 aspect ratio format. It's very easy to do in PowerPoint. And with PowerPoint Live in gallery mode, you can fill almost the entire screen. So we do have customers doing that. So it is a thought process of moving to 21:9 source content. But just wanted to add that some customers are doing that, and we have some capability around that.
Okay, thank you. There's a question regarding Copilot. Is Copilot included in Teams, or is it a separate license?
Copilot overall is a separate license. There are some recap capabilities that are part of Teams, but overall the Copilot license is a separate Microsoft license.
Okay. And then some of the features that you were sharing, Greg, are those part of the new Teams app?
The new Teams desktop app. Everything that was available in the version 1 Teams app is making its way to the new Teams app. Not everything is there quite yet. Capabilities like proximity join and others for rooms are in internal rings and kind of making their way out to the public. But by the end of the year, we'll have full parity with everything that you had in the first version of Teams.
Okay, great. Mike, this question is probably for you. Any materials to share with users on how to handle 21:9 displays for sharing content like PowerPoint?
Sure, we have some schematics centered around a signature room setup, but it comes down to essentially the compute device being able to deliver or output a 21:9 aspect ratio. The resolution can vary from 1080p to 4K to 4K plus to 5K. So the compute device will define if we can drive a 21.9 screen and fill that screen. Again, if the content is 16.9, you're limited to a 16.9 view in that, which does border it, but we can certainly follow up with that individual with some technical details.
Great, thank you. Question about deployment. Has this system, and I'm assuming it's the bundle, been deployed on a military base?
I'll take that, not on the military, but we have deployed at the Federal Reserve and we have deployed at the FDA. So if we consider U.S. government entities, those are the two that we have that are running currently Microsoft Signature Front Row with Pana displays.
There's a question about Jabra. I know Jabra is not joining us, but perhaps somebody can answer this. Will the Jabra Pana cast work in a room that has a 45+ foot with a boat-shaped table?
I can take that one, Melissa.
Work, yeah. Okay.
So in the case of the various peripherals, right, one of the reasons that we find the right peripheral to fit the room size, when we look at, as we go through device certification, and Greg can correct me on this too, devices are looked at based on room types. The Jabra PanaCast 50 is excellent for a room where you have the width and you need the individual camera views, but at a distance of 45 feet, there are likely some better audio solutions. I would be concerned that at the farthest distance away, based on where it's mounted and obviously microphone pickup, people are going to get lost. Microsoft provides a complete list of certified audio solutions, and there are likely some more pro AV centered solutions that AVI-SPL could provide that would help you achieve a better overall experience for the user at that size room. That's likely out of range for what we're talking about here.
Okay, thank you. Let me see here. Oh, there's a question, and maybe you can share it in the chat, Greg. Can you share the Microsoft link where the signature size where you can find the signature sizes that you showed that are described? I think it was the
Yep, I can do that.
Excellent. Here's a question about sound. Do you ping the rooms with ultrasonic bursts from the user devices?
At times, yes. So there are a few moments as people are joining the meeting that we use a little bit of an ultrasonic tone and listen for that to try to prevent echo. So we do have people that kind of accidentally will join the meeting on their laptop in the room and they'll leave their microphone and speakers on. And we use ultrasonic to quickly detect that and turn the microphone off to remove that echo, so you don't get that howling sound if people accidentally do that.
Excellent.
It's very brief. It happens just at that time and then stops.
All right.
If there's more detail about why you're asking that, I'd love to know, because it's an active development area for us, and we've done things like even tested the scenario with dogs, like assistant dogs in the room. Because dogs can sometimes react to the ultrasonic tone. So would appreciate just hearing input if you have any.
Excellent. Well, I think we're coming up at the top of the hour. Let's take one. I know there's lots of questions still, so if you didn't get your question answered live, I will be working with our team here to make sure that each question is addressed individually from the appropriate presenter. And there are a couple questions about the transcripts being available. That would be a question for AVI-SPL, I am assuming so, that the transcripts are available. And with that, Mike, I think you have one last slide to put up that shows contact information for each brand. And with that, I think that takes us to the top of the hour. Appreciate everyone who attended. We do acknowledge the irony in the fact that this is a Teams call on a Zoom platform, but that is the platform that AVI-SPL uses right now. We're hoping to change that. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, so much for joining, and thanks to the panelists for your support and continued partnership.
All right. To all of our panelists, thank you. We'd like to also thank all of our attendees for joining us on today's webinar, Signature Microsoft Teams Rooms Made Easy. This recording will be available on the AVI-SPL website, along with the transcripts, at avixa.org/webinars within about 5 to 7 business days. And your one CTS and CTSD renewal unit will be applied to your transcripts within those 7 business days. If you have any trouble with this, please contact the AVI-SPL team directly at webinars@avixa.org. And just a side note for CTS holders, if you've registered for the webinar with an email address other than the one that's on file for you, you won't get credit for attending. It can be fixed on the back end. You would just need to email your account rep that's listed in your profiles dashboard and let them know that you used the wrong email address, and we'll get it corrected for you on the back end. We'd like to thank our sponsor today, Jupiter, and a huge thank you to all of our presenters for helping us to understand Microsoft's Teams rooms. We hope you've enjoyed this. Please stay safe and make it a great day, everyone.
Thanks, all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.